Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're joining us from. A very warm welcome to today's webinar on nature positive tourism. It's really great to see so many people joining us at this time. My name is Karishma Asarpura, and I'm a senior officer at the Climate Action Team at ICLEI World Secretariat, and I coordinate ICLEI's activities under the Urban Shift project. Next slide, please. So before we get started, I'd like to go over a few technical details. Today's webinar will be available in English, Mandarin Chinese, and Bahasa Indonesia. So please click on the interpretation symbol. That's the little globe icon that you should be able to see in your control panel, and you can select your preferred language. We also want to inform you that this webinar is being recorded, and the recordings in all three languages will be shared after the event. Next slide, please. So if you have any questions for our speakers, please use the Q&A box. So you may send in your questions to us at any time during the webinar. We'll try and answer them via the chat or during the Q&A towards the end of the webinar. And we have a good few minutes for that, so please feel free to engage our experts. We really look forward to your questions. Next slide, please. Urban Shift is funded by the Global Environment Facility and led by the United Nations Environment Programme in partnership with the World Resources Institute, ICLEI Local Governments for Sustainability, C40 Cities, UNDP, the World Bank, and the Asian Development Bank. So Urban Shift supports 23 cities in 9 countries to adopt integrated approaches to urban development through many different opportunities and activities. Next slide, please. So turning to today's discussion, I'm excited to introduce our panelists who come from different backgrounds and areas of expertise and are here to share their insights with us. So we are joined by Rebecca Whitehead, the Sustainability Manager at the World Travel and Tourism Council, who will set the stage for our discussion and provide us a global perspective on travel, tourism, and conservation. After Rebecca's presentation, we'll move into a panel discussion featuring Guling Wang, the Director of Ecological Education Department at the Hangzhou Bay National Wetland Park in Ningbo City, China. Dr. Tiago Beraldo Souza, the co-chair of the IUCN WCPA Tourism and Protected Areas Specialist Group. Next slide, please. David Tambunan, representing the city of Bitung in Indonesia, specifically the tourism agency. Svetlana Mikhalyeva, the coordinator of the One Planet Sustainable Tourism Program at UNEP. And finally, Ingrid Coetzee, the director of Biodiversity, Nature and Health at ICLEI Africa, who will be moderating our panel discussion. And we'll share short bios of every speaker as they are being introduced. So with that, let's dive right in. I'd like to kindly invite our first speaker, Rebecca, to share her insights with us. So Rebecca, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Karishma, and thank you for such a warm welcome. It's an absolute pleasure to be here today. As mentioned, my name is Rebecca, and I'm the Sustainability Manager here at the World Travel and Tourism Council, as we like to call for short, WTTC. As discussed, I'd like for this presentation this morning to give a really high-level insight into the global travel and tourism nature positive journey. And what a journey it has been. For us here at WTTC, we've been on this since 2019, and through our more recent work, it has become a topic near and dear to us. So without further ado, next slide, please. So I'd like to start off by setting the scene with a simple phrase. Nature is essential to travel and tourism. You see, nature provides destinations with unique identities. In many cases, it is the core part of their appeal to travelers. Now, when we take a look at the stats, we see that travel and tourism is one of only 6 sectors globally that has 80% of the value of its goods and services highly dependent on nature. When we take a minute to think of that figure, 80%, that is a huge dependency. Now, this dependency helps explain why nature generates millions of jobs and billions of dollars in tourism revenue, which, might I add, is and can be further leveraged for nature conservation. Next, please. However, as a planet and a community, we stand at a tipping point. Biodiversity loss and ecosystem collapse is one of the top threats facing humanity over the next 10 years. Now, the figures on the screen tell it all. However, this challenge has not been met with silence. At COP15 in 2022, we saw the launch of the post-2020 Global Biodiversity Framework. Its intentions, as seen on the screen, are clear: a world where biodiversity loss is halted and reversed, and we journey towards a future where we live in harmony with nature. Next, please. So at this same time, travel and tourism made its own contribution under the historic Nature Positive Tourism Partnership. United by WTTC, UN Tourism, and the World Sustainable Hospitality Alliance, the partnership brings together the public and private sector to advance a shared mission. That vision, a nature-positive world in which tourism operates within and positively contributes to. This vision looks at some broad objectives, as you can see there on the screen. Now, we would love to see this adoption of the vision broadly across the sector by 2030. And at the time of release, we started with 150 signatures of global companies, destinations, and conservation charities showing their support for this approach. Next, please. Now, as a caveat, when I'm talking about nature positive, I mean halting and reversing the damage of nature so it can recover from its current depleted state. And what the vision asks for from the sector is adopting a nature positive approach to tourism. What this means is integrating biodiversity safeguards into operation and destination activities. Now, this can be done by taking positive actions to reduce, one, your carbon footprint. So, for example, switching to more renewable energy sources. Two, reducing the pollution and waste produced. So, this could be looking at circular approaches in procurement of hard goods. And three, the unsustainable use of resources. So this is all to do with overconsumption and the consumption of scarce resources. Now, that's a high-level overview. However, our Nature Positive Tourism Toolbox provides a four-step framework to implementing this approach. However, what I do want to draw your attention to here is this unique role the sector has in protecting nature. We've coined it our ability to be guardians of nature. If done right, a key role of tourism is to celebrate nature. We give nature an economic reason to be conserved that is non-extractive. Simply put, our sector and our customers benefit most from nature when it's healthy and it's protected. Next, please. So as I mentioned, we have a few free resources to help guide action. Now, in the creation of these resources, we consulted over 180 travel and tourism businesses and identified three key gaps. Firstly, Destination Connect. So tourism professionals aren't conservationists. We need support in understanding nature risks and how best to take action. Secondly, the supply chain. So from our research at WTTC, we see that majority of our environmental footprints sits outside our direct control. So we need the supply chain to help us advance these commitments. Lastly, visitor behavior. So our activities as businesses and destinations are one thing, but often the key touch point with nature involves the visitor. So how do we best manage visitor conduct? Next, please. So we're currently working on these key gaps. However, there is one crucial challenge we face that is limiting the scale of our action. Travel and tourism needs to be taken seriously and given a seat at the table. As one of only 6 sectors with 80% of our value highly dependent on nature and the opportunity to be a crucial non-extractive financer of nature, travel and tourism needs to be a part of local and national government, bilateral, cross-sector discussions and decisions on nature conservation. Only then can our sector truly fulfill its potential to support nature financing and conservation efforts, and importantly, achieve our sector's vision. So WTTC, along with the partnership, has made some of those first steps with our recent interventions at COP16, positioning the sector in this light. Next, please. However, we call on the broader community to also acknowledge and support travel and tourism's crucial role in nature conservation and financing. So this slide shows a few ways of how this can be achieved, but importantly, we call on the support of local and regional governments to help incentivize the adoption of nature-positive tourism, whether that be through guidance, regulation, or financial support for businesses. Next, please. So the business case is clear. Without nature, our sector, which represents 10% of the global economy, will cease to operate successfully in the absence of healthy ecosystems. I wrap up today with a reminder. As you may be thinking now, I have to juggle nature amongst my other social and environmental priorities. Well, action on nature is action on climate. We can address the broader climate crisis through our focus on nature-positive solutions and biodiversity protection. And what we know there is the cost of inaction is far greater than the cost to act. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rebecca, for that really inspiring entry into our discussion today. And I love the bit about action on nature is action on climate as well. So with this setting of the scene, I'm going to start our panel discussion. And my first question is to Svetlana. I want to ask you something, and we talked about, or Rebecca mentioned the whole impact of environmental things on the tourism industry. So one of the things that's very topical at the moment is around pollution, particularly plastic pollution. And if one travels around the world, you see the impacts of this. And I was just wondering, in terms of coastal tourism destinations, what scalable solutions have you seen, and do you have to advise us on the whole issue around how to deal with plastic pollution? And maybe at the same time also just address the issue of some introductory strategies to reducing greenhouse gas emissions also within tourism areas. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Ingrid. Can you all hear me well? All good? Yes, fantastic. And hello all. Thank you so much for inviting me to this webinar. Very happy to start with the topic of plastic pollution. It's a very, very important topic on which we work, as you know, quite a lot in the United Nations Environment Program, and more specifically in the One Planet Sustainable Tourism Program that I'm managing together with colleagues from UN Tourism. As you just mentioned, Ingrid, plastic pollution, it's definitely an environmental issue. It's also a health challenge. And every year, the world produces 430 million metric ton of plastics. I'm speaking slowly just to print this figure because it's just humongous. And much of this single-use plastics indeed end up in urban and in coastal areas. Around 75% of global plastic waste is convergent in urban zones. And in coastal destinations, this issue is particularly pressing because unmanaged waste can then directly impact marine ecosystems, but it also affects local livelihoods, and it also can destroy tourism assets. But also the good news is that tourism sector is uniquely positioned to support the implementation of impactful solutions. And this can be done through innovation, through upstream prevention, which is absolutely key, and of course through collaboration on value chain level. And for this, I have a bit better, I would like to say, than just a few examples, but really a proposal, an offer to really join forces within the framework of the Global Tourism Plastics Initiative that we are managing. It's an action and commitment framework. And our mission is to support tourism businesses, tourism destinations, including cities, including national governments, and as a relevant organization, really in shifting from single-use plastics. And we do this by requesting the sector and relevant stakeholders by committing and taking action on elimination of single-use plastics, on introduction of reuse models, uh, and on a collaboration around value chain, including with waste management stakeholders. And then also to disclose progress annually, which is absolutely essential so that we go beyond claims, beyond pledging mechanisms, but that we are really entering into action. And our work in UNEP and in the World Tourism Organization is to effectively support tourism businesses, governments, and all other relevant stakeholders with the implementation of all of these targets. We develop tools together with the industry stakeholders, practical guidance so that it's really effectively used, and we start piloting it on the ground in various countries, including in Asia. And specifically from city level perspective, what we recommend, maybe like main 3 or 4 takeaways is, well, effective implementation of bans does work. Just bans in themselves can be quite ineffective and even discouraging. So a lot of efforts needs to be done around implementation, around engagement of local communities. So proper communication to local communities, but also to tourists so that they understand why this type of bans or this type of voluntary commitments are taken on city levels, on destination levels. Then obviously it's essential to strengthen the waste collection, sorting, and recycling system. But then again, many of you know that globally, less than 10% of plastics is being actually recycled. So we can't focus when we work on the prevention of plastic pollution exclusively on waste management. So the main recommendation would be really working with the tourism sector, and this is where we come in to help and to assist on upstream solutions, how to make sure that tourism businesses are fully empowered with not using single-use plastics anymore, how to explain them easily, how to use reusable solutions. And we do have a lot of tools, and we propose really practical technical support to achieve this.
Thank you very much, and particularly the point about practical solutions. I think especially at the city level, that's very needed. Wang, my question now to you is, how has Hangzhou Bay National Wetland Park balanced ecological conservation with visitor engagement? And can you share any specific innovations that have helped minimize the impact on ecological systems, but also at the same time maximize educational and economic benefits, please?
非常感谢能够在线跟全球的各位专家学者一起交流。
Thank you for inviting me to be here with all the experts from all over the world to have communication and also discussion. Since 2015, our wetlands, we have started our initiative, ecological initiative. So in terms of ecological protection, we in terms of the design and also development of the wetland park, we have we do a lot of the ecosystem protection area and also redevelopment area. These are our core projects. We try to categorize this ecological protection area to be the core area. It is to protect, for instance, the fishes, the birds, and many of the natural animals and also floras and flora. This part we do not open it to the public. This was only preserved to be used for research and scientific study purposes. The public can learn about their project through, for instance, some video clips and also public propaganda, but they have no access to this area. The reason why we do this is to protect this area. We can still show it to the public through technology without the public having to access to them and cause them any issues. We have about 129 types of birds that is protective animals. We are very proud that it has increased to 300 something. Initially, when we started, it was only 129. We are very happy to share with you with the statistic at the beginning. We have only 7,000 visitors coming to our wetland park initially at the area that we open for the public. But at this point in time, the statistic and the numbers has increased tremendously. We can see the number of visitors coming to visit us and see the nature. And also we find that the ecological resources can now be converted into tourism resources. Many people come to our place and our park and say, it's beautiful, but there's nothing much to see. But right now they can see thousands and tens of thousands of nature, of animals, of birds. They came and they say, wow, this is amazing. This is magnificent. We feel proud. We feel we have really successfully managed to convert, not only to preserve, but also to convert our natural resources to a tourism resources. It is also an asset to the city and to us. We feel we have put in some effort into this effort of protecting the environment as well as giving some kind of joyous experience to our tourism, because we feel China, we have about more than 1 million seasonal birds coming to our wetlands. We right now are thinking of coming up with maybe bird viewing activities. And also we will try to categorize, like introducing different kind of birds and make it a seasonal activities to allow tourists to come viewing the beauty of nature up close. This kind of seasonal activity should be something that they can enjoy. We hope that we can we can start this maybe around October of this year. We can use this we can do different kind of activities. For instance, in November there will be more young tourists coming to the wetland to view. There is a kind of specific flowers that we have only in our wetland. This is the kind of activities that we are planning in pipeline, not only to bring in tourists, it can also bring income to the park.
Thank you very much. Those are really interesting insights from your part of the world. David, Bitang City, how has your city created an enabling environment to make conservation and sustainability in tourism a priority for Bitang City? Please.
Oke, thank you Ingrid. Halo everyone. Baik, saya sangat merasa terhormat untuk bisa bicara di forum ini.
I'm very happy that I could be honored to speak in this forum. I'd like to extend our views. I'm from the government, and I would like to say that first, that becomes the background is of Bitung, because Bitung is a city which mostly is a conservation area. About 61% of Bitung area is a conservation area. 31% is a land conservation, and 30% is sea conservation. And this area is potentially to be developed to be tourism destination based on nature. And this is a good basis for us in Bitung so that the government will give a direction for the policy and also prioritizing for nature conservation and sustainable tourism. And in my views, the regulation We are very grateful that the regulation from the central government, from the National Planning Agency, from the Ministry of Tourism, it is integrated up to the local regions and up to the Bitung city, and all is integrated. There are some regulations from the central government up to the local is already integrated. And so me from the Service Office of Tourism, just continue and just follow the regulations. And indeed, there are some weaknesses, but we feel that it could be overcome with the integrated regulation. And further, in Bitung City itself, the stakeholders of the policy, in this case from the mayor of Bitung at the high level up to the lowest level, they all have a sufficient awareness that the purpose of the conservation and the sustainable tourism is for the welfare of the people and for the advancement of the city. And this is which is encouraging. And so the decision of the stakeholders could still be in the right direction, and we just still safeguard the consistency of the policy stakeholders of Bitung City. And number three, the cooperation across the stakeholders. Bitung government through the tourism service office cooperate with the conservation of resources North Sulawesi. And in this cooperation, the purpose is for the development and for the utilization of the conservation area in Bitung City. And some locations in Bitung that we have made cooperation is like the Batu Putih Nature Park, and also the Batu Angus Nature Park. And this Batu Angus some time ago was there is a urban shift made some activity there. And this cooperation is the basis because some time ago, since 2019 up to 2024, we received support from the Ministry of Tourism for the development of public facilities, especially in the Batu Angus Tourism Park. And this is very good, and also is giving a good impact for the economic advancement of the local people and generally for Bitung City. Another cooperation that we feel is great is the working together with the private sector, with the resort owner, hotels, and also government, and also these sub-districts, and also religious leaders. So we work together hand in hand. And so we clean the sea, we clean the coastal area and conservation areas around the Bitung City. And number four, we also do empowerment of the group which are tourism awareness. There are 10 villages in the tourism villages. It is called the group of the tourism aware. They are aware of the tourism, and this is the destination, which is and for example, this group of the Batu Putih, they are from the people who live in the around the Batu Putih park, and so they would like to create awareness for the environment, in this case conservation, and also for the economic development in the area. And number five, and so dissemination and publication. We of course we go to schools, to the junior high school, to high schools, and we disseminated this to give information, to give education to all the students concerning conservation and also sustainable tourism. That's all from me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and for also giving us so many practical ideas. I'm going to give over now to Tiago for your question. How can tourism businesses practically contribute to conservation efforts while also maintaining profitability? And how can they overcome some of the implementation challenges? Please, over to you, Tiago.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Ingrid, for the question. As chair of the Tourism Protected Areas Specialist Group from IUCN, I am honored to contribute to this important conversation about how local leadership can turn global nature positive goals in real change, especially in cities. And congratulations to Rebecca and WTTC, because we, TAPAS and IUCN, we also support the work of the Nature Positive Tourism Initiative. We often think of conservation as something that happens far from urban centers, deep in protected areas, but cities are also have a crucial role to play, because nature positive tourism can and must happen in urban landscapes too. And today I want to talk about just one very powerful tool that can help nature positive in cities, that is urban trails. Trails in cities are more than recreational features. They are ecological corridors, economic assets, and social connectors. When well designed, they help conserve biodiversity, link fragmented green areas, and give people a direct connection with nature, often just a few minutes from their homes. Let's take in Rio de Janeiro, in Brazil, we have the Trilha Transcarioca. For example, we built a 180 kilometers trail that crosses the city of Rio de Janeiro. It runs through the Tijuca National Park, one of the world's largest urban forests, but also touches neighborhoods, favelas, and communities that now see themselves as guardians of the trail. Singapore also has a good example, the Southern Ridges and Park Connector Network, combining public investment with private sector engagement, including tourism companies. I want to make the point that trails isn't just about recreation, it's a tool for conservation. By connecting green areas, it strengthens ecological corridors and supports forest regeneration, supports also species transit, movement, and migration. We have regions, for example, in the United States, where those trails are crossing cities, connecting different regions, and species are moving along the trails. Trails also are a very important tool for income generation. Local guides, homestays, business, the entire supply chain of tourism, and even the cities itself, they can benefit for increased visitation and visibility. Those trails like the Transcarioca and Rio de Janeiro are becoming very important as a tourism asset that people travel to the city to visit and enjoy. Also for well-being, urban residents, many of whom have limited access to nature, find physical, emotional, and spiritual connection on the trails. And when we talk about nature positive, it's very important to look to this aspect, the well-being of the people, and how connection to nature can improve the health and emotion, physical, emotional, and mental health of us and all the people. To make this viable, local governments must offer incentives such as tax reductions, branding opportunities, and visibility on official tourism maps. Another key is creating coordination platforms that bring together tourism, urban planning, and environmental department to align efforts and share responsibilities. So this is what I bring to the example and the tool that I bring to the table for this conversation today, that we can use some tools as trails as very powerful as a very powerful tool for sustainability, because sustainability has to have the three aspects: the ecological aspect of sustainability, but also social and economic aspects. And when we combine them all together, we make very powerful movements towards conservation and nature positive. So thank you.
Thank you, Tiago. And I think that in this first round of questions, we've seen some great complementarity in terms of the initiatives and the tools and solutions. So we have time now for a second round of questions. And Svetlana, I'm coming back to you. From your perspective and the work that you do, are there any standout examples of collaboration between business and governments in Asia? And particularly those have made a significant sustainability impact. And I think this feeds on nicely from what we've just heard that Tiago has spoken about.
Yes, we definitely have. Maybe let me give you an example of the recent work that we've been doing through the Global Tourism Plastics Initiative in Bali in Indonesia. It's a very, very well-known tourist destination, very impressive in terms of biodiversity, but also we all unfortunately know the huge issue of plastic pollution Bali has been facing for several years now. And you may know Bali and Indonesia more broadly have in place plastic bans for a very long time now, but they are not really effectively implemented in all of the destinations. So basically, the idea, the starting point of our project was how can we, as UN, as the Global Tourism Plastics Initiative, help assist national and local authorities with the effective implementation of these bans, and how can we mobilize the tourism sector more specifically, because that's our mandate. And we really started with a practical 3-day training involving tourism sector stakeholders. We did have quite a number of Global Tourism Plastics Initiative signatories already in Bali. We also brought to this training stakeholders that didn't know about us. We mobilized, of course, local authorities. Another very important stakeholder group that we engage in the Global Tourism Plastics Initiative is what we call supporting organizations. That are business associations, business federations, certification schemes, NGOs, consultancies. So all these stakeholders that do not directly have a plastic footprint necessary, but they have large networks of tourism stakeholders, and more specifically tourism businesses behind them, and they have the knowledge and they have the capacity to mobilize people and to continue building capacity. So basically, and of course it was very important, we of course also engaged waste management infrastructures into these discussions. So it was short intervention, 3-day, really in-depth capacity building. And when I have seen the level of the challenge that Bali is facing, honestly, I left a bit frustrated because I felt it was insufficient and so much more needed to be done. But then this training, this 3-day training was done in December 2024. And since the beginning of this year, we actually didn't stop continuing working with all of these stakeholders, because we continued being contacted by tourism businesses, by business associations, by the local certification frameworks, saying, listen, we found the information that you brought to us, because we produced for specifically for Bali a manual, technical manual of how to tackle the plastic pollution specifically in the context of Bali. So what are the solutions there? We mapped it, we really brought them hands-on tool. And they were genuinely grateful, and they took ownership of this tool. So they continued contacting us saying, listen, and now we are organizing independent trainings, capacity building among tourism businesses within our respective networks. And this is how it started. So we continue on our side, connecting from time to time, presenting technical tools, technical businesses. But all of this mobilization on the ground was done really by our partners who were initially participating in this small 3-day workshop back in December. So just 3 weeks ago, for instance, we have Bali Hotel Association that joined the Global Tourism Plastics Initiative. They committed of bringing to the initiative at least 150 hotels, large hotels operating in Bali. We organized with them already 2 in-depth trainings on how to implement self-auditing. So, and now we do with several of them bilateral work of online, because we are small global team. But basically, thanks to this mobilization by Bali Hotel Association, we train them one by one online of how to use in the tools that we have, how to self-audit themselves, how to develop clear action plans in terms of elimination. And we have also some colleagues from Envio, which is Impact Venture Studio, and Turkey Foundation. They started also a small project of basically developing of innovative reusable solutions that can be implemented in Bali among hotels that are part of our initiative and they're interested to pilot innovative solutions. So really, I see for the past months so much interaction, so much new initiatives going on, and all moving into the same direction. And this is really was thanks to the possibility to involve local governments that were very supportive to this. Tourism businesses, because they felt also like we were bringing them something very concrete and actionable. And really, we just acted as a connector of bridges, of course, as a stakeholder that builds capacity, but mainly as a connector. But then local ownership and local leadership was absolutely key. And honestly, I'm very, very hopeful. And my impression from what is going on now in the tourism sector in Bali specifically is absolutely not the same as 6 months ago.
That's great to hear that. Mr. Wang, I have another question for you. How do you engage local communities and tourists in supporting the work that you're doing on protecting wetlands?
Community and wetlands, we think they are interconnected right now. We are trying to bring awareness to the surrounding community. By having more community activities like what we have mentioned earlier, we go to the school, we go to the community, and go into the companies, and also we open up. We have this Wetland Day and International Global Environment Day. We try to do training and send our messages about the importance of environment. And also we will try to link our wetlands park activities with maybe 1 or 2 of the national events, bring together the resources in the community to let them come to the wetland to do some kind of environmental protection activities, project, study. We need a lot of education, because a lot of the community and also people, they don't know much about wetland. They only and we try to get as many enthusiasts, enthusiasts into our wetland. Let them spread our information and their knowledge into the community and the public. For instance, people who love birds, we can use different kind of birds to make different kind of images, photographs, and then spread it out, allow people to engage in activities and find the interest point to attract them. to come to us and help us protect our land. Besides the surrounding community, we are trying to come up with the wetland protection a group. We can also have some kind of competition and also having activities like going to the wetland to have observation and allow more communities and also public coming into protecting the wetland. That's all I have to share.
Thank you so much. David, let me turn to you. From a city perspective, we always need financial and technical support. And I wonder what your city would need to help strengthen the tourism and environmental initiatives for Bitung City.
Baik, terima kasih Ingrid. Ya,
Thank you very much, Indrik.
tentunya memang kami sangat
Indeed,
Kota Bitung itu tentunya memerlukan juga
Kota
dukungan
Bitung City
baik
also needs support,
dana ataupun juga teknis.
financial support and technical support.
Beberapa hal yang kami perlukan untuk
A number of
masalah
things
dana,
that
kami
we need for
merasa
financial support
restorasi ekosistem
for
pesisir,
the ecosystem restoration in the
seperti
coastal area,
penanaman terumbu karang
such as the
ataupun
planting
mangrove,
of the
itu
coral,
adalah sesuatu
and
yang bisa dilakukan dan
also
kami rasa
something that we could
kami
do,
memerlukan support dana
and we
seperti
need
itu,
financial support,
mengingat anggaran pemerintah Kota
considering
Bitung
then the
sebenarnya
government
sangat terbatas.
funds budget of Bitung City is
Sehingga
very limited,
inisiasi dukungan untuk
and so
kegiatan
for
konservasi memang kami sangat
the
perlukan.
conservation activities we
Kemudian
have
yang
limited
kedua,
budget. And number
kami
two,
juga memerlukan support
we also
untuk
need support,
dukungan dana bagi pengembangan
financial
ekowisata.
support for the
Seperti yang tadi sudah saya
ecotourism
sebutkan, ada
development. As I
beberapa
already
desa
mentioned,
wisata di
there
Kota
are
Bitung yang memang masyarakatnya
tourism
sebenarnya
destination
memerlukan
where the people, community there
pengetahuan, wawasan yang lebih
need
luas
some knowledge,
mengenai
broader knowledge
pariwisata yang berkelanjutan dan
about
juga
sustainable
kawasan
tourism
konservasi.
and also about
Dari sisi
conservation.
infrastruktur tentunya
And
seperti
in
yang
terms of
sudah saya sebutkan tadi
infrastructure,
di
as I already
Taman Wisata
mentioned,
Batu Angus,
in the Taman
kami
Wisata or
sebenarnya
Tourism Land Park Batu
berharap
Angus,
ada juga dukungan
we
dalam
hope there is also
hal
support
infrastruktur seperti
in terms of infrastructure
pengembangan
such
jalan
as
dalam kawasan
and
yang
so
saat ini
development of
masih
roads in
terbatas,
that area, which
dan
is
juga
very
jalur
limited,
trekking,
and also for
boardwalk
the
ataupun
trekking
dermaga
trail,
apung,
and also for
supaya
the
perahu atau
floating
kapal yang dipakai untuk wisatawan di sekitar
and
pantai
so
itu
the
tidak
yachts that could be used by the
sembarangan
tourists
berlabuh di daerah
is not
mangrove.
just berthing in the
Kemudian kami
mangrove
juga
area.
merasa bahwa kami
And
juga perlu
we
didukung
feel
untuk
that we also need support
UMKM lokal
for the
seperti
local
yang mengerjakan
SME
homestay,
that
taman wisata lokal, juga mungkin
organize
ada beberapa
homestay
usaha
for the local
pariwisata yang
tourists, and also
mengerjakan
some tourists that
penyewaan jasa
then also
snorkeling
other
dan
people
seperti itu
that
ya,
provide
dan lain sebagainya.
homestay, etc.
Beberapa hal teknis lain yang kami
And
rasa
other technical
dukungan
matters
juga
that we
seperti
need
yang tadi
also support,
Ingrid sudah
as
sebutkan,
Ingrid
memang
already
kami
mentioned.
ada beberapa hal praktis yang sudah kami
There
lakukan,
is
tapi
practical
semuanya masih
things that we
terbatas,
do, but
dan
it's still very limited.
kampanye tentang kebersihan
And the campaign
destinasi
about the
wisata itu masih
hygiene
sungguh
of the
kami perlukan
tourism
bagi
destination, we still need
masyarakat ya,
for
karena
the people
itu
because
wilayah yang tadi sebagian besar adalah konservasi memang harus
the conservation
menjadi
area
sebuah hal yang penting tentang
it is
kebersihan
something it is
destinasi
important to
wisata.
pay attention to the
Beberapa
hygiene
pelatihan
in
juga
the
mungkin
tourism
kami juga
destination.
memerlukan beberapa
Some
pelatihan
trainings,
seperti
we also
pelatihan
probably need
pemandu
trainings
wisata
such
lokal,
as local
pelatihan
guides
pengelolaan
for
desa
local
wisata,
guests, and also
mengenai
for the
pengelolaan sampah,
and so
sanitasi,
waste management,
pelatihan pemberdayaan
sanitation,
masyarakat
training
desa
for the
dalam hal
village
peningkatan ekonomi,
people
dan juga
empowerment
bisa
in
juga
terms of
mungkin
their
kami
economy,
terbuka
and also
kalaupun
we are
ada
also open.
kota yang terbuka untuk kami boleh saling bertukar ilmu
And so
ataupun
maybe
juga
if there
saling
is other
bertukar
cities that we could
informasi
exchange
dengan kota lain yang mungkin lebih
information
maju dari
with other
kami Kota
cities who are
Bitung dalam
more
hal
advanced than
pengembangan
Bitung
wisata maupun
in
konservasi.
developing
Itu saja mungkin Ingrid. Terima kasih.
ecotourism. Thank you.
Thank you so much, David. And I think this workshop actually has generated a lot of information, and I'm hoping that amongst the cities there will be some exchange. Tiago, there's a question in the chat box that I want to refer to you. You talked about ecological corridors, and the question is that, is there a risk that corridors, ecological corridors will allow invasive species to travel and to enter from that corridor into other areas?
Thank you, Ingrid. I want to include this question in, I want to talk a little bit about indicators that are important. And then one of these indicators is the ecological impacts. So it's important when we are designing, for example, there's initiatives in urban areas, also try to understand is tourism helping expand the green spaces, or it's connecting ecological corridors, it's engaging communities with nature. This is the type of questions we should ask also. It's creating positive impacts, negative impacts in the community, in nature. It's bringing more invasive species also. It's a very important question. I want to provide key indicators that we can use to measure this type of situation and to measure the positive and negative impacts of implementing more nature tourism in cities. For example, number of kilometers of accessible and safe urban trails is one key indicator to understand how large can be those corridors, how much people is using those areas. For protected areas and even for urban protected areas, we have very good frameworks to measure number of visitors, even if the area is open and there is no gate. So you can use the statistics to measure estimate the level of use of one trail or one urban protected area. The increasing native vegetation cover or pollinator species or invasive species, like Arvik asked in the Q&A. For invasive species, it's really important to measure. You can measure this. It's different to measure if we're talking about vegetation or fauna and animals, or if you're talking about terrestrial areas or aquatic landscapes. So depends of the species. But most of the situations, I can tell you that even more in urban areas, it's more important to connect to the areas than be worried about invasive species, because we are talking of very anthropic areas, landscapes. So normally we have more problems creating islands of where the species cannot move than spreading invasive species in regions that are we have too much people in the area. Also, to measure the economic benefits of the tourism also is important. Percentage of tourist revenues reinvested in green infrastructure, or for example, also in interpretation tools. This is important also for language and communication. Gopal Krishna also made this question. And for example, with the new technologies we have now, you can create, for example, interpretation panels in cities with QR codes, and you don't need to have an interpretation panel with 100 languages. You can just offer a QR code, or you can offer an app that anyone will use to visit the city and the areas in their own language. You can offer audio podcasts also that people can access and have this opportunity in their own language. And also, of course, there is a barrier between conversation between people, but normally tourists and people who work with tourism, they are very willing to communicate in the touristic language that's universal. And visitor satisfaction and learning outcomes, it's very important. For example, when measure visitor behavior, like is Vitlana is talking about plastic, measure how much plastic people are using, or measure how much trash people are leaving in those green areas that we are promoting, and also measure health benefits for the local population and for the visitors. We can do measurements on all those aspects of tourism in nature tourism. And I will put in the Q&A in the chat. We have a few free guidelines, like the visual experience resource protection and limits of acceptable change. There are frameworks developed in the United States to measure acceptable visual impacts while protecting ecological and social values. And in TAPAS, IUCN, we developed the IUCN Visitor Use and Monitoring Guidelines that we have in Chinese also também this guideline. We provide flexible, globally relevant approaches for tracking visitation and assessing sustainability.
Thank you so much, Tiago. Such interesting things, and I'm afraid we have run out of time. So what I want to do is I want to bring Rebecca in. Rebecca, there's a very interesting question about language. Language is a big issue to involve local communities of tourism. Tourists come from different areas. If you could please respond to that. And I just want to ask you also to give some reflections back from your perspective of listening to all of our panelists. I see there's one last question, and from Al-Wafi. Wafi, we have run out of time, but what I'm going to do is ask you to put your email in so that one of our panelists can respond to you in writing. And with this, I'm going to hand over to Rebecca, and when you're done, Rebecca, I will just close our webinar. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Ingrid. Well, firstly, I mean, it's been a very insightful panel and fantastic to listen to so many different practical activities and progress that is happening around the world. As Svetlana said, you know, the challenge in many of these areas is huge and sometimes hard to conceptualize and know where to start. So if I start off with sort of an overview on what's been discussed here today, I think a key takeaway is taking those first steps and those actions. They don't have to be anything incredibly huge and significant to start off with. You know, sometimes we can get caught in that sort of overwhelmed state of where do we start? There's been suggestions here around single-use plastics and the removal of that. That's something at WTTC we've also focused on in the past. Our Hotel Sustainability Basics program, which really looks at the bottom level of sustainability for the hospitality industry and trying to make it accessible for hotels across the world. One of those key criteria points there is the removal of single-use plastics. So I think that's an easier place perhaps to start in saying that there's always challenges there. You know, it's looking into the supply chain of how can we sort of look at different suppliers to overcome some of those challenges as well. I think also what's been discussed today is, you know, other parts on sort of nature corridors and other work around, you know, cleaning up oceans and coastal areas. I think what's also been touched on here is this collaboration between the public and the private sector, which is fantastic to see. And when we start to talk about some of the challenges around financial and technical support, I think leveraging those partnerships is a fantastic place to start, not only through providing financing, but also some of those technical support areas that as destinations or tourism businesses, perhaps there's some of the knowledge gaps we're missing. So I think a key takeaway from this discussion as well is collaboration and being able to take that first step. Practical guidance does exist out there. I've mentioned a few which I believe have been shared by WTTC. These are free places that you can go to and see some of those practical steps that can start. In saying that, I appreciate we still do have challenges and gaps, so it's something that I know we are continuing to work on here at WTTC. To the question in the Q&A, I think Thiago has touched on it already when we're talking about language. Of course, this will continue to remain a challenge. However, I do think we're in a place where technology is aiding us in many ways. Appreciate again, access to technology does differ around the world. However, as Thiago mentioned, interpretation can be done in different languages and can be put throughout the tourism experience at different touch points along that experience where a tourist can scan a QR code and receive the information in their local language. I think that's being done quite broadly across the sector and across the globe, and it's a really effective way. We're also starting to see audio guides being used a lot more frequently, and again, you can get lots of different languages in those ones. I will just sort of take it back another step here and say, I think when we're talking about language as well, we can start to look at the very first step of the visitor experience. So when they're booking the experience, what kind of information are we sharing at that point as well? This is a great way for them to access that information in their own language. So once they've booked, perhaps it's a kind of code of conduct about how the visitor can be kind to nature, what sort of actions they can take when they're in the destination to help reduce their impact. Also, if there's some other areas they should be aware of when sort of interacting with different parts of the experience. I think that's an interesting way. I know the question also touched on local communities, which I think continues to be something the sector needs to work on. That idea of collaboration and integration with local and particularly Indigenous knowledge as well. So engaging local communities as much as possible in the tourist experience. And I think that comes from, again, these partnerships, but ensuring that local communities do have a say in how tourism is taking place in their local community, and ensuring that any tourism related revenue or taxes in that area are looking to be reinvested in the local community. In this sense, that could be used for for local training as well, or to be reinvested in some of those technical guides or guides around different translations for visitor behavior. I hope that's answered more or less that question there. And once again, thank you very much for having us here. And it's been an absolute pleasure to listen to all of the panelists and see the great work that is happening and only will continue to keep going.
Thank you so much, Rebecca. Yes, I certainly think you did respond to that question and also did a great job in giving us the sort of high-level summary of the key takeaways. I'm just absolutely always impressed at the richness and the diversity of experiences and solutions. So I want to, with this, just thank all of the speakers. First of all, Rebecca, for your introduction and your summary now, to Tiago, to David, to Wang, to Svetlana. It's really been fantastic listening to your insights. And I look forward to seeing further results and visiting many of these places and hearing more about it. And I think also, within the context of the Urban Shift program, it's a very important topic that we talk about. And I want to then just thank also our organizers for bringing us this topic, particularly at this time where we are focusing on such big challenges, but also celebrating Biodiversity Day, etc. So thanks again to all of our panelists, to Rebecca and to the organizers and the back team that are keeping everything going. I wish you all a good day or evening. It's probably for most of you evening. And I know, Tiago, you got up very early. So I hope you enjoy your cup of coffee this morning. And yes, thank you also to the great inputs from the panelists. And I note that there are some inputs around nice links, so please watch those before you sign off. Thank you very much.
Thank you.